Welcome back, everyone. Today, we're diving deep into, I guess you could call it an AI security nightmare.
Yeah, those situations where you think it can't possibly be true, but it is.
Exactly. How could this happen? And that's what we're going to be looking at today. DeepSeek AI. Have you heard of them?
Oh, yeah, they were making a lot of noise, especially with their DeepSeek R1 reasoning model.
Right. It was like they came out of nowhere and were suddenly rivaling the big players like OpenAI.
Yeah, and they were getting a lot of attention because their model was supposedly way more efficient and cheaper to run.
Yeah. But as we're going to see, maybe that was because they cut some corners in the security department.
Yeah, well, it's a good reminder that even cutting-edge companies can make some pretty basic security mistakes.
And those mistakes can have some pretty big consequences. So we've got a research report here from Wiz Research. They're the cybersecurity firm that uncovered this whole mess.
Yeah, and the crazy thing is they weren't even specifically targeting DeepSeek or anything.
So how did they find it? I mean, were they just kind of poking around?
Basically, they were doing a routine mapping of DeepSeek's public systems. Just seeing what's out there.
So just kind of like a casual scan and boom, they hit the jackpot.
Well, they found a couple of unusual open ports on DeepSeek's network ports, 8123 and 9000.
And that's what set off alarm bells.
It was definitely suspicious. And you know what those ports led them to?
I'm on the edge of my seat.
Tell me. An exposed ClickHouse database.
ClickHouse. Okay, I've heard the name, but I'm not really sure what that is. Can you give us a quick rundown?
Think of ClickHouse like a high-performance database. It's designed for real-time data processing and big data analytics.
So it's not your typical database.
Right. It's built for speed and can handle massive amounts of data. So it makes sense that DeepSeek would be using it.
I mean, they are an AI company after all. They're probably generating tons of data.
Exactly. But here's the thing. A database like ClickHouse, if it's not properly secured, can be a gold mine for hackers.
Okay, so it's valuable because it holds a lot of data.
Yeah.
But what made this particular ClickHouse database so vulnerable?
Well, Wiz Research found that it allowed direct execution of SQL queries with no authentication whatsoever.
Wait, so anyone could just access the database?
Yeah.
No password, nothing.
Pretty much. It's like leaving your front door wide open and putting up a sign that says, "Free stuff, come and get it."
That's just mind-boggling, especially for a company that's dealing with, potentially sensitive user data.
Right. And it gets worse. One specific table within this database called Logstream was practically overflowing with sensitive information.
Okay, Logstream, spill the tea. What kind of information are we talking about here?
Well, according to Wiz, they found over 1 million log entries in that table. And get this, the logs dated back to January 6th of this year.
Wow, so they were logging pretty much everything.
It seems like it. And the logs contained all sorts of juicy details like chat history from DeepSeek's platform.
Hold on, chat history. As in like people's private conversations.
Yeah, it looks like it. The logs also contained API keys, backend details, operational metadata.
API keys, so like digital passwords that give access to their systems.
Exactly. And depending on how DeepSeek had their ClickHouse configured, there's a chance the logs even contain passwords and local files.
Okay, now I'm officially freaked out. I mean, this is serious stuff. So what does this mean for people who are using DeepSeek's platform? Was their privacy compromised?
Yeah, that's the big question. And unfortunately, the answer is probably yes. Especially with the exposure of chat history. I mean, that's a major privacy concern.
So is this like a sophisticated hack? Did someone break into DeepSeek's systems and steal this data?
Actually, no. It wasn't a hack at all. This was just a plain and simple security blunder.
So they basically built this incredible AI engine and then forgot to put any locks on the doors.
It's a good analogy.
Yeah.
And it's more common than you might think. Companies are so focused on innovation and getting their products out there that they sometimes neglect basic security.
It's like building a race car and forgetting to install the brakes.
Exactly. And in the fast-paced world of AI, security often takes a backseat.
But as we can see from this DeepSeek incident, that can have some serious consequences.
Yeah, it's a wake-up call for the entire AI industry.
So what are your thoughts on this whole situation?
Well, I think this incident shows just how important it is to make security a priority from the very beginning.
So you're saying security can't be an afterthought?
Exactly. It needs to be baked into the DNA of AI systems from the ground up.
But isn't that easier said than done? I mean, security can be complex, especially in the world of AI.
True, but it's not impossible. And to DeepSeek's credit, they did respond quickly once Wiz Research alerted them.
So at least they were able to contain the damage once they knew about it.
Right. They secured the exposed database. But the problem is the data was already out there.
It's like trying to put the toothpaste back in the tube once it's already been squeezed out.
Exactly. You can't unring the bell. The data's out there, and who knows who has it now.
So this is a major wake-up call, not just for DeepSeek, but for the entire AI industry, right?
Absolutely. This incident should make everyone in the AI space stop and think about their security practices.
And it raises some interesting questions about responsibility. I mean, who's ultimately responsible for AI security?
That's a great question, and it's something we'll be exploring further in this deep dive.
So stay tuned. We'll be right back after a short break.
It's not just on DeepSeek to clean up this mess, you know?
So it's bigger than just one company's mistake.
Right. This incident has like ripple effects that go way beyond DeepSeek. It should make all of us ask, what can we do, like both individually and collectively, to make sure AI is developed and used responsibly and securely?
That's a good question. And it's one we should all be thinking about, especially as AI becomes more and more a part of our everyday lives.
Oh, absolutely. AI is everywhere now. Healthcare, finance, transportation. The stakes are pretty high.
Yeah, a data breach in any of those sectors could be catastrophic.
Mhm.
So let's talk solutions. What can organizations do to prevent this kind of thing from happening in the first place?
Well, the first thing is they need to make security a top priority throughout the entire AI lifecycle, from the design phase to deployment to ongoing maintenance.
So it's not just a one-time thing. It's a continuous process.
Exactly. Security can't be an afterthought. It needs to be built in from the ground up.
But let's be realistic here. Implementing those kinds of robust security measures, it can be expensive and time-consuming, especially for smaller companies and startups.
Oh, that's a fair point, and there's no easy answer. But even smaller organizations can take steps to improve their security.
So what can they do?
Well, for starters, there are a lot of open source security tools and resources available that can provide a solid foundation without costing a fortune.
So it's about being strategic with your resources.
Exactly. And it's about focusing on the fundamentals like strong authentication measures, encrypting sensitive data, both in transit and at rest.
Right, so that data is protected no matter where it is.
Exactly. And then regularly conducting vulnerability assessments and penetration testing.
So basically trying to break into your own systems to find weaknesses before someone else does.
Right, exactly. And let's not forget about the human element. I mean, employee training is crucial.
Yeah, because even the best security system in the world won't help if someone accidentally leaves the door wide open.
Exactly. Everyone in an organization needs to understand their role in maintaining security and how to identify and report potential threats.
So it's about creating a culture of security where everyone's on the same page.
Precisely. And as AI keeps evolving, so do the threats. We need to stay ahead of the curve.
So looking ahead, what are some emerging technologies or trends that you think will shape the future of AI security?
Well, one area that's really promising is homomorphic encryption.
Homomorphic encryption. Say that 3 times fast.
I know, right? It's a mouthful. But basically, it's a type of encryption that allows you to perform computations on encrypted data without having to decrypt it first.
Wait, so you can work with the data without actually seeing the data? That sounds like magic.
It kind of is. And it has huge implications for AI security.
How so?
Well, imagine being able to train an AI model on sensitive data without ever exposing that data in its raw form. That's the power of homomorphic encryption.
That would be a game changer. But I'm guessing there's some challenges with implementing a technology like that.
Of course. There always are with any new technology. Right now, homomorphic encryption is pretty computationally intensive, so it can be slow, which limits its practical applications.
So it's still early days.
Yeah, but research in this area is moving fast, and I think it has the potential to revolutionize AI security in the next few years.
Exciting. Anything else on the horizon that you're keeping an eye on?
Definitely. Another area that's getting a lot of attention is differential privacy.
Okay, another technical term. Break it down for us.
Sure. Differential privacy is a technique that lets you extract insights from datasets while still preserving the privacy of individual data points.
So it's like being able to see the forest but not the individual trees.
That's a great way to put it. With differential privacy, you can learn about general trends in a dataset without being able to identify specific individuals.
That sounds incredibly useful, especially for things like healthcare or finance, where data privacy is so important.
Absolutely. And more people in the AI community are advocating for incorporating privacy-preserving techniques like differential privacy into AI systems from the outset.
So we're shifting away from thinking about privacy as an afterthought and moving towards a more proactive approach where privacy is built in by design.
Exactly, which I think is a very positive development.
Definitely. Okay, so we've talked a lot about the technical side of AI security. But what about the human element? What role do you think regulations and government policies will play in all of this?
Well, that's a big one. As AI becomes more integrated into our lives, I think it's clear that we need some solid regulations to make sure it's developed and deployed responsibly.
Do you think we need something like a GDPR for AI?
Well, the GDPR was a huge step forward for data privacy, and I think it could definitely serve as a model for AI regulations.
So clear guidelines on things like data security, algorithmic transparency, and accountability.
Exactly. Those are all essential. But of course, there's always the concern that regulations could stifle innovation.
Right. How do we strike that balance between protecting individuals and fostering technological progress?
That's the million-dollar question. And honestly, there's no easy answer. It's a complex issue that requires input from all stakeholders.
So AI developers, policymakers, ethicists, the public, everyone needs to be involved in the conversation.
Exactly. We need to work together to create a regulatory framework that encourages innovation while also protecting individual rights and societal values.
It's about finding that sweet spot where technological progress and ethical considerations can coexist.
Exactly. And that's a goal worth striving for. The future of AI depends on it.
Well said. Now, before we wrap up this part of our deep dive, I want to circle back to something you mentioned earlier about collective responsibility.
Oh, yeah.
We've talked about the role of organizations and governments, but what about the individual user? What can they do to protect themselves in this age of AI?
That's a really important question. Because as individuals, we might feel kind of powerless when it comes to these big data breaches and complex AI systems, but there are definitely things we can do.
So give us some practical advice. What can our listeners do to improve their own AI security?
Well, first of all, be mindful of the data you're sharing with AI-powered apps and services. Read the privacy policies. Actually take the time to understand how your data is being collected, used, and stored.
Don't just blindly click accept on those terms and conditions.
Exactly, because sometimes those things are longer than a novel.
Yeah.
But it's important to know what you're agreeing to.
Right. So be informed and be aware.
Right. And also be cautious about using AI-powered tools for sensitive tasks, especially if you're not sure about the security of those tools.
So maybe think twice before using that free AI chatbot to summarize your confidential legal documents.
Exactly. Even seemingly harmless AI applications can be vulnerable, so it's always better to err on the side of caution.
So the key takeaway here is be informed, be aware, understand the risks, be cautious about the data you share, and choose your AI tools wisely.
Exactly. We as individuals have a responsibility to educate ourselves about AI and its implications for our privacy and security.
It's not about being paranoid or afraid of AI. It's about being informed and empowered.
I love that AI has so much potential to do good, but we need to make sure that its development and deployment are guided by security, ethics, and responsibility.
Well said. This DeepSeek incident has definitely highlighted how important it is to take AI security seriously.
It really has.
Now it's time for us to come up for air from this deep dive. Before we go, I do have one more question for you. It's maybe a bit more philosophical.
Okay, shoot.
So we've been talking about AI security in this very practical way, like concrete steps and stuff.
Right.
But this DeepSeek situation, it kind of makes you think about bigger questions too, about innovation and responsibility. Like, where do we draw the line?
Yeah, it definitely highlights that tension between wanting to innovate quickly and needing to develop things responsibly.
It's like we're so excited about building these powerful AI systems that we forget to think about what could go wrong.
It's like building a rocket ship without a guidance system. You're moving fast, but where are you going?
Exactly. We need to make sure that our technology is actually serving humanity.
Right? And that's where AI ethics comes in. We need to have these conversations about the ethical implications of AI and develop guidelines to make sure it's used for good.
So who should be involved in these conversations?
Everyone. This isn't just a problem for tech companies or governments to solve. It's something we all need to be thinking about.
So ethicists, philosophers, social scientists, the general public, everyone needs to have a say.
Exactly. AI is going to impact all of us. So we all need to be involved in shaping its future.
So it's not just about the code. It's about the values behind the code.
Absolutely. AI isn't some neutral force. It can be used for good or bad. It's up to us to make sure it's used for good.
Okay, so to wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave our listeners with something to think about. We talked about a lot of technical stuff and practical tips, but I think the big takeaway here is that AI security is about more than just technology.
I agree.
It's about our values, our ethics, and our vision for the future. It's about who we want to be as a society.
Well said. And you know what? This DeepSeek incident, as unfortunate as it is, could actually be a good thing in the long run.
How so?
Because it's a wake-up call. It's forcing us to have these important conversations and to make changes to ensure that AI is developed and used responsibly.
So it's a chance to learn and grow from our mistakes.
Exactly.
So to our listeners out there, stay informed. Educate yourselves about AI and its potential benefits and risks. Get involved in these conversations, and don't be afraid to ask tough questions.
And if you're using AI-powered tools or services, be a conscious consumer. Make sure you understand how your data is being used and that you're comfortable with the company's privacy policies.
And if you're developing AI systems, think about the ethical implications of your work. Build systems that are aligned with your values, and that will have a positive impact on the world.
It's about being informed, engaged, and responsible.
I love that. So that's it for today's deep dive. Thanks for joining us, and as always, stay curious and keep exploring.